I'm a bad motherfucker.
Get it together to do a new one because this Christmas we dropped my version of Fairy Tale of New York that I did a couple of years ago. I did Werewolves of London on the piano one year for Halloween.
Oh.
Yeah. It's an easy song to sing. Anybody. It's pretty much speak singing. Pretty
Good
much
to know
recites
for
it.
karaoke when I want to do karaoke.
Yeah, it's a good karaoke song.
We're still with you?
Oh,
Or
no,
we with
no.
me?
Back to you.
All right. So the show's been light-ish.
Welcome
but
back to the Jimmy Dore.
we're getting. Thank you, Keaton. Hi, I'm Russell Dobular. This is the Jimmy Dore Show. Jimmy's not home right now. Please leave a message. He's in Europe. He'll be back. All right. So this has been kind of a lighter show. And now it's about to take a dark turn. Top UN expert warns of deteriorating situation in Haiti. It's apocalyptic. The UN's top expert on human rights in Haiti has warned the Caribbean country is rapidly moving towards becoming like Somalia in the worst of its times, after a criminal uprising which has displaced tens of thousands of people and largely cut its capital city off from the world. Just over a month ago, after the gang rebellion began, William O'Neill, an American human rights lawyer who has been traveling to Haiti for more than 30 years, voiced alarm over the rapidly deteriorating situation in Port-au-Prince. The international airport has been closed since early March because of the violence. Foreigners are being evacuated by helicopter, and heavily armed gang fighters continue to sow chaos, launching almost daily attacks on schools, universities, hospitals, banks, businesses, and the political heart of the Haitian capital. On Wednesday, the National Library was looted. Quote, I know someone who lost half her family to former dictator Francois Duvalier's execution squads. That's Baby Doc. And she said she's never seen it this bad. Uncles, cousins, brothers killed, and she said it's never been this bad, O'Neill said from Geneva. I'm running out of words, frankly, at this point. It's apocalyptic. It's like the end of times, added the UN's independent expert, who helped set up the resource-starved Haitian police force that is now battling to stem the tide in the mid-1990s. Quote, there's a level of intensity and cruelty in the violence that is simply unprecedented in my experience in Haiti. More than 1,500 people have been killed in the first 3 months of 2024, compared with 4,451 in the whole of last year, the UN said last week. O'Neill is no stranger to challenging security situations, having worked in hotspots including Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Kosovo, Bosnia, Nepal, and South Sudan. But he expressed shock at the almost complete evaporation of Haitian authorities in the face of the gang mutiny, which started on 29 February and forced the Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, to announce his resignation from abroad. Haiti held its last election in 2016 and has lacked a president since 2021 when Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in his Port-au-Prince home. Haiti currently has no elected officials. Quote, here I think what's different is that the state is virtually absent. There is no state, and that's almost like a Hobbesian world where it's really the survival of the fittest. And unfortunately, the fittest right now are the gangs, said O'Neill, who thought only a minor miracle was helping Haiti's outgunned police prevent a total takeover. So far, the bulk of the violence has been confined to Port-au-Prince, up to 90% of which is now estimated to be controlled by Haiti's powerful, politically connected gangs. More than 53,000 people have fled the capital in recent weeks, according to the UN. However, O'Neill feared the turmoil could soon engulf other parts of the country, fueling a massive exodus of refugees to the U.S. and Dominican Republic, which shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti. If it all just completely goes hell in a handbasket and it spreads out of Port-au-Prince to the countryside, you'll have lots of people getting on boats. You're going to see them take whatever risk to get out of there. And we actually saw that last, I think, under the Duvaliers. You used to see Haitian boat people coming over to escape their regime. O'Neill believed that nightmare scenario was weeks away at worst, months at best. It's really now descending into something that's like Somalia in the worst of its times, a 90-minute flight from Miami. We're not there yet, but we're perilously close. Despite his grim prognosis, O'Neill believed the situation could be reversed. He hoped a Kenya-led multinational security support mission of up to 4,000 police officers and troops would be deployed and manage to retake and secure key pieces of infrastructure such as the airport, the port, and the fuel terminal. O'Neill suspected the rebellion was not about seizing power, but rather deterring the deployment of foreign security forces and intimidating politicians involved in a transitional council being set up to choose new leaders and restore order. He said Haiti's almost total lack of government was essential to the gang's lucrative illegal activities, including kidnapping, gun running, drug trafficking, and extortion. I can't read their minds, but it seems as though they're targeting people or institutions that could be involved in a change, a transition from this catastrophe to something different. They're not interested in changing Haitian society or good governance or anything like that, O'Neill said of the gangs. Now, this is interesting because, honestly, there's been some back and forth among left voices about what these gangs represent, particularly the figure of barbecue. Frankly, I think Haitian history and culture is something that very few people have a good enough handle on to venture an opinion. We and Jimmy spoke a little bit with Danny Shaw. He's one of the very few experts that we have access to on this subject. Quote, I don't think they want to take over. This is not like the Maoists in Nepal or Colombia's FARC. There's no ideology here to take over the state and run things. I think they want to keep a very weak, ineffective, and largely absent state so that they can fill the void and keep control. Any thoughts on that before we get to this video, Keaton?
Well, I mean, isn't that how a lot of governments are formed? Really? I mean,
it's funny because it's true. Yes,
it's true, right? Yeah. So, I don't think that's unique to this situation, but it seems to me like a very tragic and hopeless situation, not in small part because of the just complete lack of trust of any outside forces coming into Haiti. I mean, when you talk about forces coming in to keep the peace, I mean, they've been told this a million times that, oh, yeah, no, we're going to put your relief effort in charge of Hillary Clinton and George W. Bush, who tried to basically make that a paradise for American and Western corporations, and ended up basically just looting the place. And so, we talked to Danny Shaw about this, and it's difficult to get a handle on this because this is one of those situations where it's hard to have an opinion because the only honest opinion is what a disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that, yes. So this video really brings out how complex it is, because the inclination is to say these poor people, we should intervene, right? I mean, that's the reflex. But not all the people in Haiti, apparently, even under these circumstances, want that intervention for the reasons Keaton laid out. So let's take a look at this. It's a very interesting perspective.
This human rights lawyer says U.S. intervention in IT is the problem, not the solution.
Why Won't they leave Haiti alone? The mental pain right now Haitians are going through all over the planet is a crime.
Haiti has faced escalating violence and political crisis since 2021 when President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated. Armed groups are now fighting over control of the capital, Port-au-Prince, where violence has displaced tens of thousands of people. Now the US has pledged $300 million to fund a mission to send as many as 1,000 Kenyan officers to intervene. Even though a Kenyan judge blocked that deployment in January, saying the ICN government has no legal legitimacy, and lawyers and politicians in Kenya say they will block it again. Founder of the ICN Lawyers Leadership Network, Ezele Donto, is suing the country's government for treason for requesting the foreign intervention.
It is against the Haitian constitution, and that if any of these government leaders that are appointed by the US want to do anything for the people of Haiti, they need to push at the UN for the application of the resolution that forbids these illegal arms from entering.
Yeah, and I just want to point out there have been a lot of articles about how all the guns going into Haiti, they're all coming from the United States.
Yeah, and what reason do they have to believe that we are really interested in making things better there?
Right.
Like, why
We
would
never
they
have
believe that?
before.
Right, exactly.
Donto says Haiti's current leaders have no mandate or legal capacity to request foreign troops. Acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry was never elected and is currently locked out of the country in Puerto Rico, where he announced his resignation in March, weeks after he said he would step down and only after street protests and growing violence by armed groups. But it's taken weeks to set up a transitional council to nominate a replacement, a process involving heavy oversight from the US, France, Canada, and regional trade group CARICOM, but not ICN themselves. Haiti has not had elections since 2016 and has had no elected officials since the Senate's term expired in 2023.
I have not seen the resignation of Ariel Henry. No Haitian has that I know of, and just said to us who have been fighting against interference and invasion and occupation our entire life. Before you can be part of this council, you must first agree to allow the Kenyan troops into Haiti.
Many say the mission is likely to fail and result in more ICN being killed. The militias and paramilitary groups, often referred to as gangs, are well organized. They are also armed with weapons shipped from the US with support and funding from the oligarchs and elites who own many of the ports. Haiti has been occupied and faced intervention many times.
Each occupation destroys more of our culture, our infrastructure, our connection to a society. We have to give value to our culture, our land, so that no one could stand in front of me and say, why is it bad for the United States to choose for you?
The US brutally occupied Haiti from 1915 to 1934, and the first democratically elected president of Haiti, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, was overthrown in 1991 and again in 2004 with alleged US involvement. The UN also had a peacekeeping mission in Haiti from 2004 to 2019. During that time, UN peacekeepers were accused of sexual abuse, and a cholera outbreak that killed over 9,800 was traced back to the UN base. The people of Haiti have continued to resist foreign intervention, and Donto believes the only solution is for the country to solve its own problems without foreign interference.
As I said, because originally and still today, the Western powers don't change their profit over people motto, whether it's using slavery or sweatshop wages or plundering for your resources. We're the only nation in the Caribbean that fought the enslavers, and they have not forgiven us for that.
So what do you do with that? You know, on the one hand, you have this UN observer who we're going to take as an honest observer. We've heard other reports like this, that the country's overrun by gangs and violence, and people are fleeing, and just rampant murder and attacks. And on the other hand, there's a Haitian human rights lawyer saying, "Leave us alone, let us work it out." So on the one hand, I feel like, as Westerners, even those of us who consider ourselves anti-imperialist, we're reflexively inclined when we hear things like this to be interventionist. But hey, I mean, maybe you just leave them alone to work it out. It's a very difficult moral conundrum. I mean, particularly when you have leaders like ours who are likely to go in there and plunder as they always have in the past.
I mean, what country have we left in better shape than we found it in recent history, right? And they say, well, these gangs, or as Danny Shaw would call them, paramilitary groups, pardon me. Well, they have no governing ideology. They have no underlying philosophy other than their own enrichment and empowerment through the practice of all these nefarious schemes. Well, now that does sound a lot, I'm sorry, like our government too. I mean, I think you can define a lot of governments on those terms as just not these very sort of nihilistic, power for power's sake superstructures. Now, this is not a superstructure yet because it's an unorganized country. And these gangs, if we'll call them that, have a monopoly on force, just like our government does. Like it is difficult to wrest power from people who have it. And so we think, well, because the people are living, at the mercy of these quote unquote gangs, we have to go in and fix that. Well, will we fix it, or will we leave it worse than how we found it? Because if past is prologue, my money is on the latter. And just like more philosophically, I mean, the struggle to form a government is always a David versus Goliath battle on some level, because ultimately in every one of these experiments, people with no power have to figure out some way to wrest it from those who already have it.
Right.
And that's not a peaceful, clean, neat process. And so like this is why I said, like, it's tough to have an opinion on this because it's just a big mess, but maybe the forming of a country is a big mess, right? Either way.
That's really the question. It's by bringing this up, I'm not in any way trivializing the horrible situation there, but it is a prime directive Star Trek kind of a question. Like, do you interfere in another society? And, their premise was that always has unintended outcomes and you don't have the moral right to do it anyway, no matter what.
Right.
And this is a classic example of that. Like, well, is it more immoral to interfere or not to interfere? Where does the moral imperative lie in a situation like this? I think it really comes down to what the people there want. And at least as far as we can tell, it's very difficult in such a chaotic situation. Doesn't seem like even under the circumstances, the people of Haiti are crying out for the United States to get involved.
No. Well, one way we could have done something to fix this is, demonstrating some goodwill when we had the chance after the earthquake, which obviously we did not. What do we do? Fucking suppress the minimum wage at the behest of Levi Jeans, who didn't want to raise it from whatever it was, 24 to 61 cents an hour. So we raised it by much less. I mean, that's just one of many examples. But no, well, look, we had an opportunity to win over the trust of the people to the point where if we say, hey, we're going to, send in forces there to keep the peace, maybe if we had proven an ounce of goodwill over the past several decades, they would